Night Vision. Following clues left by our ancestors, we unbury the past to reveal a knowledge of unfathomable value, putting us just a little closer to our own true birthrights. From the secret history of a possible bloodline of Jesus Christ, the secret history of America's founders, to the secret history of extraterrestrial interaction on our planet, here to bring light to the night. Your host for Night Vision Radio, Renee Barnett.
Hey everybody, welcome to Night Vision, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm coming to you from deep in the heart of southern France in the Languedoc region, from the village of Esperanza. And I've been here meeting with my colleague that you all know so very well, who's going to be joining me in just a moment. But, you know, he's become quite a popular author these days. And we're going to be telling you a little bit about his book that's out now, but also what you can expect to see from him in the future. And I mean, I just feel very humble that he's joined us this evening once again. And I thought, I just struggled with how I'm going to introduce him now that he's so prominent. And I thought, there's actually somebody a little higher up, a little higher authority than me that could do this next introduction. So here we go.
James Martin is here today. James, where are you?
Well, I wasn't expecting that introduction.
What an honor. The President of the United States is introducing my colleague. That is amazing. James Martin, Night Vision historian.
Hi, everyone.
And for once, we're next door to each other. We're in the same location.
In fact, if I push my hand just off screen, I might be able to grab you, kind of thing. It's just,
Oh, wow. Went the wrong way. Yeah. Well, James and I have been tooling around a little bit in the area, and James had identified some places that he knew that I'd be interested in seeing, along with you would be interested in. So we're going to talk a little bit about where we've been this week, particularly a church that is very unusual, has some very unusual symbology in it, some that you wouldn't ordinarily expect in a church. So you want to just give a little brief introduction about where we went, what the church and where the church was located. And then I think we have some great images to show you as well.
Yeah. It's a village that's overlooked. It used to be a very big village, quite an important one on an important roadway that came to the town of Esperanza, but a bypass sort of killed it off really as a town. And it's often overlooked by many tourists, but also people who are interested in the Rennes-le-Château mystery. And of course, I'm referring to the village of Brenac, which, to my surprise, the Rennie population, and by that I mean the people interested in the Rennes-le-Château, not just Renee, the host of Night Vision, seem to have overlooked. And there are some very interesting buildings there. There were two churches in the town, one from the 1400s, the other from a few hundred years before that. One was used as a meeting place for Cathars, and there's still a bit of debate as to exactly which one of the two churches. I know which one I favour. But the main church in what you could maybe call the village square, it's not really a square, it's like a large road, is for me one of the real interesting places in this area, because when you walk in, your eyes, before they adjust, see a church, but almost instantly, as soon as you begin to look at the artwork, you begin to look at the way that the church is decorated, you begin to see pretty quickly it's not really a church. It's certainly a shrine to something else.
Absolutely. I was shocked at not so much that there were sort of Masonic type symbols in the church, but how many there were. I mean, occasionally you do see things that are reminiscent of Freemasonry. Like, in fact, in the church here in Esperanza, there's a painting that where they've got the set square. It looks like Jesus with the carpenter, his carpenter father Joseph, but very clearly that square, that Masonic symbol is in there. But it was just almost at every turn in that church, there was something that was odd to find in a church. And can you talk about that, about how unusual that is and what that says to you?
Well, firstly, in terms of Freemasonry, the Catholic Church essentially declared war on it, calling it heretical.
Right.
It was in theory, at least. The practice of it is perhaps not as universal, but it was because it was a heresy. It was punishable by death if you were a Mason. So that doesn't align itself with a Catholic Church littered with Freemasonic symbology. Now, for those who are familiar with the Rennes-le-Château mystery, if you're not, jump onto the KGRA-DB website, and you can see in the Night Vision archives we've discussed this plenty.
Good idea.
We know, for example, that Sonia was visiting Brenac. Now, he doesn't put in his diaries that he's going to the church exactly. There have been some rumours over the years that Sonia himself was what's called a Martinist, sort of Freemasonic order that originated in France. And
for those who may not know, when we speak of Saunière, we're talking about Abbé Saunière, the priest at Rennes-le-Château, during the time that all the stories started swirling around him finding something of great value, whether it was gold and jewels or whether it was heretical documents. It seemed to me more like it was something heretical that needed to be suppressed. But that's my interpretation. But that little church and that priest sparked this whole mystery that really later Dan Brown connected to, and that's how the Da Vinci Code was born. It all sprang out of this area, and people like Richard Lee, Henry Lincoln, and Michael Bagent, who wrote Holy Blood, Holy Grail, are portrayed in the film in a sort of amalgamous way. And also, I wouldn't be surprised if there were some hints of our dear Tim Wallace Murphy, who was also consulted by Dan Brown at the writing of the Da Vinci Code. So he gathered information from some of the top researchers in these fields to do his book. But that sparked a whole interest again in the book Holy Blood, Holy Grail, and hundreds of thousands of tourists flooding into this tiny, tiny hilltop village. But what we've found is that really is just sort of the spark. But the mystery is so much wider and encompasses so many more sites and is so much more complex than someone finding something and hiding it, So just to clear that up for those who may not be familiar with Sonia.
Yeah. I mean, it's reading, well, actually, for me, when I first came over here, it was a combination of three things. One was your film, Renee, Bloodline. There was a computer game by Jane Jensen, Gabriel Knight, which was all about Rennes-le-Chateau. And of course, then you've got Holy Blood, Holy Grail. But when you get to the village of Rennes-le-Chateau, for me personally, I was beyond let down. I was expecting, I don't know, metal detectors all over the village, people with hoods, shadows, even during the daylight somehow, and the church.
Metal detectors come out at night, very, very or early morning. Yeah,
certainly know that now. But the best way I describe it, though, is it's sort of the epicenter of a hurricane. There's not really much activity for me going on, but as soon as you step out, you're in the whirlwind. And there are so many. I mean, this church. To give you a rough idea, I mean, when you go into it, ground level looks very church-like. You just need to allow your eyes a few minutes to adjust. And I'm just very surprised that there doesn't, maybe I'm missing something and these things aren't of any importance, but I'm just so surprised that people don't make the effort to go up there. So I'll show you one of the first pictures. So this is as soon as you walk into the church, overlooking the altar is, well, the all-seeing eye of providence. For those who are listening, just to describe it, essentially you have a sun with beams around it, and in the center of the sun is a pyramid shape. And this pyramid is flanked by 5 panels, that was the word. And the southerly panel has a very unusual 3-barred cross, which, yes, again, I really am struggling outside of masonry to find any connection to it.
Well, I found a few connections to 3-barred crosses, but they look different than that. The top 2 bars are straight across, as those are, but the bottom bar is tilted downward to the right, stage right as you're looking at it. But that are clearly 3 straight bars. We often see the 2 bars, which is the Lorraine cross. But you're right, I don't see that. And, I haven't had time to do extensive research on it, but I did do some after we got back, and all I could find on 3-barred crosses were the ones that were tilted at the end that came sort of from the Middle East area. So that doesn't seem to be any connection whatsoever with that cross in this church. I just wonder what the meaning of that cross is. It has to have some symbolic meaning. It has to have a description.
I mean, I was looking in some old textbooks. There isn't a depiction of a 3-barred cross, but the closest I could come to it was perhaps the depiction of the Holy Trinity. But again, you've got a slight problem there because some of the bars are of different length, which would suggest that, one is more important than the other. Yeah. And as we know from Catholic history, the church history, that is extremely heretical and has caused schisms in the church. So again, for me, I just think that doesn't quite do it in any way. And again, remember, somebody has commissioned these to be painted, and that's the one thing that we've got to just keep in the back of our heads.
I wonder how easy that would be to find out who commissioned that work.
I'm presently working on it for the exact name, but I do know that some of the statues within the church were purchased by the same company that Saunier used for the church at Rennes-le-Château, and that were used in the church at Esperanza as well. So,
and I have to say that some of the artwork, as in the church at Rennes-le-Château and as the church here in Esperanza, is odd. It's not very good. It's kind of garish. It's kind of sloppy and not very artistic. Do you agree with that?
oh, I totally agree with it. Now, I should explain I have a very strong view that art is very personal. So I tend not to discuss art with anyone, because usually when I hear people looking at a dot on a wall and saying, "Oh, how much it means," I think, well, I don't see what you're talking about. But with all that said, my first thoughts were just how cheap it looked.
Exactly. And we've been in some very tiny churches that are hardly in use or anymore, but they still have these gorgeous, because they are Roman Catholic churches, they have these gorgeous paintings. These, I would imagine they're very valuable, they're extraordinary. And I would imagine that the Catholic Church puts those in the churches. I don't imagine these little poor villagers, are purchasing this grand art.
Well,
but then let's say about the church at Brennack, why isn't there anything like that in there?
I mean, in church history in France, at least, the church, the Abbé would at one point have furnished their church, and the wealthier or the more tithes they could collect, and the leaky roof fund and all of this, the grander the church would look. Now, after the Third Republic in France is proclaimed, and in around, I think off the top of my head, it was 1889, all churches become the property of the French state. Now, it could be, I haven't found it yet, but it could be, that's an explanation, the sort of state minimalist, you're having this type of blue in every church sort of idea. I haven't found any evidence of that. It could be, it could easily be that the paint, and it's not just the paint, I have to say, though, and I think some of the statues in there, and some of the heraldry that's depicted in there, I don't know whether the local school was involved in making it, but it looks very primitive compared to other churches. And this isn't meant with any disrespect to followers of the Catholic belief or anything like that. This is just, as I say, this is my get rid of the night vision historian, call me night vision art critique. This isn't an attack on religion.
Oh, it's just different. It's worth noting that it stands apart from the other churches in the region in this way. I mean, not to go on and on about the paintings, but and I hate saying this, but they truly reminded me of like when I was a kid and you got those paint by number things. And then of course you'd always hang it up because it was gorgeous, but it looks like, it looked quite like that. Like,
to be honest, they looked as if I was doing paint by number, and I cannot look for anything. So, but we're saying this is the stuff that's on the walls, because this is completely opposed to then what you find on the ceiling, which is of incredible detail and somewhat. Some of the images are a little unnerving, actually. Now, I've just got to say to everyone, these are alive pictures. Now enough, they're still warm from the camera we were using, so we haven't had any chance really to, edit or anything like that, or resize or shape. So if you're watching this, please bear that in mind. And if you're listening to this, we're just going to have to describe them to you. But for example, I mean, let me have a look. We have, so for those watching the program, and for those listening, this is a picture from the ceiling, and it is in complete contrast to what you find on the walls. This is of good detail, and it shows a cruciform cross. Behind it is, visibly, you have an 8-rung ladder. There's probably more rungs on that ladder, but just in terms of the rungs themselves. And you have some deeply Masonic symbols there. So you've got a set square, you have a hammer, you have 3 nails, a spear, and this kind of stuff. So far, nothing earth-shattering, nothing that's going to make you go, well, you know, this is obviously not a church, it's a Masonic meeting place or Martinist or whatever. But if we just quickly carry on, this is the one that puzzles me the most. And what this is a very clear depiction of the Ark of the Covenant. And upon the Ark is a strange text. I cannot decipher it. Maybe with a little bit more application, Photoshop, we can maybe clear it up a little bit more. But on some of the images, there is a very unusual language that doesn't really resonate with me. I haven't seen it before. That's not to say others haven't. So if you recognize any of this from the pictures, if you're looking at this, please get in touch with us. info@newrennies.org. This puzzles me. And the reason it puzzles me is the fact that the Ark of the Covenant is depicted with the poles, or carrying sticks, if you want to call them that, but poles detached. Now, remember that the book of Exodus, God instructs Moses never, ever to remove the poles. You know, these carrying sticks. Well, here is a depiction of the Ark of the Covenant with the poles removed, and they form a cross. They're sort of set into the ground, if you will, or they're set somewhere, in a cross. In other words, they've been removed. The Ark of the Covenant is stationary, which it shouldn't be. Now that, as far as I am concerned, would bring that particular image into heresy.
Now, do you think that the way that the crosses are placed, that it says anything about degrees or angles or anything like that? And the fact that they're detached is like, okay, look at this, but there's something behind that. There's a message behind that. Do you think there's any possibility of that?
100%. What I think we're looking at in this church is essentially a language that needs to be deciphered. And for some, it wouldn't surprise me if you were initiated, you'd be able to read what's on the roof and understand perfectly, without any ambiguity, what it is trying to say. For us, who are trying to figure out what it's got to say, is going to take a little bit of doing, because I'm not sure what that really means. I just know it's significant.
Yeah.
And I do think it's a case of as above, so below, you know, because you're looking up. So what's beneath? Now, I'm not in any way suggesting people go up to Brannock and start digging.
Oh my God.
But that below could be in the valley. Now, Brannock is just over the valley. You can see around the chateau from Brannock. You literally are looking directly at the village. So when I say it's 15 minutes drive, it really is 15 minutes drive.
I'm glad you gave out our email address, because I really would, we really would like suggestions from people as to, if they know anything more about these symbols. There's a particular sigil that I'm anxious to show, but I know you've got things that you're doing in order here, so I'll hold my peace, but I'm anxious to put that on the screen at some point to see if we get any answers. I've been sending it around a little bit to see if anyone can suggest anything. But But yeah, we would love your input. Also, I wanted to say to any Rennies that are watching this, if you've got something in the nearby area that you're just dying to know about or get a shot of, send us a quick email while we're here, and then we'll do our best to grab that for you if we can, if it doesn't take us too far off our course. So we love it when you participate, and so then we can have good conversations about it later. Anyway, sorry, go ahead with your symbols.
I was just going to say, and we have actually got some places that have been directed as well. So
Well,
if
yeah,
you can,
we're going to be checking out a place for Court Lindahl, the Oratory of St. Anthony, which is near Brannock, or it might even still be in Brannock. I'm not sure if it's inside the city limits or the village limits or not, but it's right there. So we're going to go take a look at that to see whether or not we can glean any connection between that and the Rennes-le-Chateau mystery, the Teniers painting of St. Paul and St. Anthony in the desert, and which, as you Rennies know, is a part of this whole mystery. So yeah, if you got someplace you want us to run and check out, if we can, we will.
And especially if it involves a 2-week trip to, I don't know, the Bahamas. If you
all expenses paid, of course.
All expenses paid, of course. if you're happy for that, I'll do most things.
But if you got anything we can do on the cheap, let us know.
Yeah, that's probably better. But yeah, if we come back to the church, I mean, Renee, if you want the sigil that you want to show, if you do you want to look at that now, or?
I don't mind if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
Shall I pop it up, or do you know where it is?
I'm intrigued. Aha.
This one's been puzzling us for a couple years or so, at least, because we keep finding these on, certainly not every church, but on particular churches. And I'm wondering whether it's indicative of some kind of a map. Also, James, maybe you know this, where we've seen it on other churches, and I know you've seen it on a few more than I have. Are they always oriented the same, or do they have different orientations?
They've got different orientations. So where I've seen, so that particular glyph, as it's called, is in the town of Keon, and is known as the glyph of Keon. Now we have seen it.
That was from Keon?
That's from Keon, yes.
Oh, I thought that was one of the photos I took of the one in Brannock.
We've got some images of that. Unfortunately, when I was just doing a bit of a screen test before, it'd be very difficult for viewers to see.
Okay. Yeah, it wasn't in quite as nice a place to be able to be shot, not quite as clear. But okay, so for instance, that one was a different orientation than this one, right?
Yeah.
It kind of almost makes sense. It might be something like a map that because from one location, the map would denote something, and from another location, it would be oriented differently.
I mean, for me, it really is quite baffling as to what they are. I mean, I thought they were perhaps location markers on the road to Santiago de Compostela, for example. That didn't fit at all. The only thing I can say about them, really, I mean, we found a place called Brigerol. There's 2 examples on Windows. Now, let me just say to anyone who knows what I'm talking about, or knows the symbols and is in a hurry, the church is in an exceptionally poor state, and it is exceptionally dangerous. So please be careful. And we took images from a secure distance. But the glyphs, or however you want to call them, are oriented in a very different way on the windows there. They are in a church in Limoux, again in the poor state. The ones that I have seen tend to be above windows or tend to be above doors.
Doorways, right.
Now, for me, I mean, I'll just put the image back up. It sort of looks like a sort of 3D 4 that's sort of been put on the ground, and it's an X marks the spot. And I don't know how else to describe it. The 4 sort of moves around, so the X moves. It is proposed that the stone that's above the central church in Keon actually came from the fort overlooking that town. It's not actually original to the church. It was original to the fort. That's speculation, however. That's just what the townspeople say. And trying to evidence that it's correct or incorrect is going to be impossible at this stage. But
Do you see any significance at all of the line underneath and the sort of shield shape that the symbol is on? That's just like a frame.
I think the shield, usually depicts some sort of nobility.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the line that's underneath it, when I first saw that at Keon, for my eyes, it looks like a newer carving. It's sort of like it's this way down.
Right.
It looks like a newer carving. Compared to the other one, they're certainly significant, and what they are is a real mystery to me.
Really?
When they were produced is another mystery as well. There's a piece of artwork that I have been chasing now for, it must be about 6 years, from a dilapidated church in Limoux. I know that you, or I think it was Gloria actually.
It's Gloria, yeah.
Gloria had been into that church, and
Blue Church, she called it.
She called it what?
The Blue Church.
The Blue Church. Well, there we go. What a nice name. The Blue Church in the city of Limoux. This church has been left in ruin. There's a very interesting story about it. I don't think we have time to go into that, but one of the pieces of artwork depicted some very unusual things, and I have a copy of an image that I found on Google, which depicts a very unusual Mary Magdalene, and crucially, there is a skeleton that appears to be descending from the heavens, and beneath a skull, not a skeleton. Beneath the skull is one of these glyphs. And we know that piece of artwork was produced in the 16th century. So my notion with this is that these glyphs, these sort of number 4 looking things, must date to about then, if not a little earlier. The church that we went to visit the other day has a date of 12th century. Now, whether or not those windows do is another question, but I think we're looking at the early medieval period to what we would call in England the Stuart period.
You've got me clicking along here. You mentioned the Mary Magdalene painting in the church at Limoux. I'm struggling to remember it. I have been in there, but Gloria was just the one that took all the pictures. And also, I know a couple of other people that may have pictures from inside there, but I'll contact Gloria's son and also the other people that I know that were on that trip that took photographs and see what I can scare up for you to look at. Tell me about the Mary Magdalene, why it was unusual.
Because she looks exceptionally pregnant. And not only that, but she was holding her belly.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Hmm.
Now, from memory, I mean, this was some years ago, and I was involved in a local campaign to try and keep the church from being demolished and turned
Yes.
into a car park. And I know that you were involved with that as well, and many others for that matter.
A travesty. Oh,
The question is, where's the artwork today?
things like that around here just always seem to disappear, never to be seen or heard from again. It's happened over and over again. When things have been discovered, suddenly the scene is locked down and trucks are brought in from out of town and the stuff's taken away and no one ever sees it again, or really sees it in the first place to be able to identify what was there. So I wouldn't be a bit surprised if that's going to be really difficult. Now, if in France, doesn't the church own all the churches?
The state does.
Oh, the state does.
Yeah. I think it's the Ministry of Culture and Religion. And I have already sent emails to them, the press, you name it, to try and locate what happened to all of the artwork, not just this one, but what happened to it. And I know that they've read the email because there's a read receipt.
Right.
But I can also say that they've not sent me one back.
Not bothered to answer.
So it might be that they know and don't want to tell me, or they don't know and don't want to tell me. Either way, they don't want to tell me anything. So, and it's not just me. Some other locals have quite literally sent the same emails, and I even got involved with one academic who was involved in the many petitions actually, and they too have had nothing back. So it really is.
Were any of the petitioners French?
Most of them were, yes.
So that's not why they didn't answer. I mean, sometimes they can be a little funny here to foreigners who are poking around in their history. But French people as well, and that's not the reason they didn't answer.
Speaking of poking around, usually if you're visiting some churches of interest, that's usually and can be met with, let's find a way to hurry these people out. So the church we were talking at the top of the show, the first time I was there, the mayor said, "Oh, we need to clean up in the church." And as soon as we'd left, locked the door and drove off, which then got me thinking, if I can just jump back to some of these strange symbols that you can find and do find all over this part of France. For me, one of the really the key ones, just to link us back to Dan Brown here, is a grail, again with a symbol on it I can't decipher. Beneath the grail or chalice is the Eye of Providence again, appearing to drip something into the cup. For me, it occurred to me just shortly after we had visited that actually this is a symbol for masculinity in the pyramidal shape, and in terms of the cup, the feminine.
Yeah, it's interesting. You usually see something, the sword and the chalice or something like that to denote that, but that is definitely, or definitely could be.
It's really unusual. Now, this next one might surprise you. So if we're looking at this one church, there are plenty of them in the area. So if you want to go on a look at some devil churches or things like this, which we've got planned coming up. So, keep your eyes peeled for the next show on that. This next one is quite simply one of the most bizarre depictions I have ever seen in a church. there is a table with a very strange language. Again, apologies to everyone that it's not as clear. I can't emphasize that these pictures are hours old rather than weeks. But what we've got is a skull and crossbones beneath a table with some strange language on it, and some sort of sacrificial vessel of some kind with a dove that is bleeding. It's being exsanguinated into this vessel, and above the dove is the all-seeing eye again. Now, I don't know about dove sacrifice, but I thought the church moved on from animal sacrifice about 1900 years ago, something like this.
You know, the symbol that you see a lot for the Cathars is a descending dove.
Yeah.
And I wonder if there's any link with, with heresy or anything there. Or well, is that symbolic of Jesus or the Prince of Peace, that symbolized by the dove?
I know that the Cathars had the dove and the skull and crossbones in their symbology to an extent. So the skull and crossbone, again, this is speculative, but the skull and crossbone sort of depicting a resentment of the earth, which Cathars they believed as being hell,
right?
And then to die, if necessary, in terms of the dove, you could interpret it like that. But again, unless this is a panel remembering Cathars who were worshipping in this church, which again, why would the Catholic Church, the persecuted Cathars, do that? You can just imagine sat in the church mass or something like that, looking up and, I'm under the sacrificial dove. It just doesn't sit well with me at all. I mean, I know the church likes to proclaim it's liberalized somewhat, but I really don't think they've gone to animal sacrifice. It's
do you
always...
think it could be, rather than sacrificial, do you think it could be symbolizing Jesus having been, stabbed in the side on the cross?
It could very well be. I mean, the dove features heavily in early Christianity. Currently writing about that. So you've got column Keela or columba for me and you, literally meaning sort of Keela means church and column means dove. So it's like the dove church. There's a lot of symbology with the doves. It could very well be. And I'm certainly not suggesting that the answers to the Chateau mystery are found here. Just pointing out that this is so unusual. I mean, I'll just very quickly go through some of the other images. You have clouds with a hand coming down to pick up a lamb and what looks like a rabbit and some other sort of bird, a falcon maybe or something. And again, you've got the Eye of Providence there. Quite what that's doing, I'm not too sure. But the Eye of Providence appears in all of the paintings, all of the panels in this church.
Above the animals and just below the pyramid, what is that U-shape? Does that symbolize clouds or what is?
I've taken it to mean clouds, or to be clouds, but where the hand's coming down, it's clearly pointing to a lamb, Agnus Dei, perhaps. But you also see the hand for me almost looks like an initiatory
symbol.
Yeah,
it doesn't look like it's pointing, like it's something like pointing something out. it looks like another like hand signal or something, and then or it looks like it's reaching down to grab the lamb.
There is a faded, what looks to me like a spirit of a bird. So on the left-hand side, there is a very faded bird, like the spirit of it. It's just very unusual in terms of its depictions. We've got a boat, again, guided by the Eye of Providence, a boat with one person, a woman, sat within it. Now, the dress, the headdress, for me, would suit the period of the 1400s. These panels are not from the 1400s.
What about the boat? What does that say to you in terms of?
Well, it wouldn't sail, I just say that, but in terms of the design, roughly, well, again, it looks very similar to some of the vessels that were used in and around the 1500s. This said, it's a plain boat. It's got quite a deep keel. Generally speaking, the further back in time you go in Europe, the shallower the keel. Generally speaking, it doesn't scream Roman ship to me.
Right.
It looks very much like a galleass or something like that. I think Columbus and his ilk would probably recognize that more than someone from Rome.
And the person in relation, the size of the person in relationship to the size of the boat is odd. Either it's a big person or it's a very small boat. Well,
and this is the other question here, because there isn't any writing around these panels. There isn't anything like that. So my first question is, well, it looks like a boat-shaped bath. Otherwise, you've got a giant in the boat. But who is it? Who is this solitary person? And again, on the boat, you have a very unusual language. Just beneath the keel, it's quite clearly now. It could be, it could be Latin script and something like this, but it doesn't look like it to me. I'm not sure what that is.
Are you able to see it well enough to see the shapes and the detail of the characters?
I'm glad to say yes, but I was working on this about an hour before the show, and again, not quite ready, but I certainly for an update, we'll be able to have a good look at that.
Well, what have you seen a language that it reminds you of it?
Well, yes, I have, but in this space-time continuum, no. It looks like the script that you'd find in Star Trek, in the script that the Vulcans would use. That is the only thing that came to mind. No, I've not seen anything like it. All of the words are connected essentially by a line, and have some very strange sort of circular maze-like flourishes and embellishments upon it. It's clearly a structured language, but I just need to clarify a little bit more, because as I say, these panels have this very odd language on there.
Yeah.
Again, another image. This is a little bit more what you would expect to see in a church. This is a cruciform cross, the crown of thorns attached to the cross. Above it, what looks like a rose crown, and sitting just above the rosy crown is again the Eye of Providence. They really like this Eye of Providence. They must have been looking at a dollar bill. But hey, well, let's have that. Again, just some of the other images. We've got a tower, which for me looks very much like the tower that's depicted in the church at Rennes-le-Château. So if you have a look at the back wall, the mural there, there's a picture of a tower-like building with a very large door. Looks very similar. Quite where or what it is, again, there's no answer.
I've told you that that tower reminds me of the little tower that Elizabeth Van Buren had built in La Valdieu, just beneath Rennes Chateau. And I wonder whether she copied that, purposely, or if that's just the shape her tower came out to be. But she was such an unusual person in the region. For people who may not know, Elizabeth Van Buren, she was the granddaughter of President Van Buren. And she lived in this area for many, many years. She wrote some books, and they're strange reads. And she sort of has like a stream of consciousness type way of writing, but very interesting, very interesting. I've been told by a few people, don't dismiss her, because she used to be seen walking around the area here wearing a suit of armor. And, people just, oh, she's just crazy. But there was much more to her than that. And hey, maybe she knew something we didn't. She was wearing that suit of armor.
She certainly knew when it wasn't going to thunder.
Yeah.
So we've got at least that.
I don't know if it had anything to do with the telluric energy, but it seems like that would have just conducted it, not blocked it.
Yeah, it could very well be. I'll give you some breaking research on this. So as I was analysing this picture just literally before the show, remember what I said at the beginning, which was about letting your eyes adjust.
Yes.
There's something really odd about this tower. What you have is the sun is clearly shining, or the moon is shining off off the panel. You can't see this in this image. The shadow is really unusual because it actually looks like the tower is in front of a big set or a big wall, because the shadow isn't on the floor, it's upright behind it.
Right. Yeah, why would the shadow be to the sky?
Exactly. So, and any artist worth their money would know that, well, if you have the sun shining in the sky, the shadow of any object is going to fall upon the ground.
Right.
It's not going to fall on, well, to what looks like the back of a wall somewhere, because it's unusual. So again, I come back to this. Is this a rookie mistake? Is this actually an amateur artist who's done this with a fixation of the Eye of Providence? But let me tell you, I'll just tell you this. This is the only panel that doesn't have the Eye of Providence on it.
Oh, that's right. It does not.
And I don't think that is a slight mistake. I think that's drawing our attention to it.
Oh, boy.
So, again, quite what it means.
All kinds of things, with towers, they called Mary Magdalene the Tower. I don't know if you knew that.
I didn't.
Yeah. And so basically the Magdalene Tower in Rennes Chateau is Tower.
Although we know it was called something slightly different, but yeah, it's how odd. I mean, it could very well be that that's what it's depicting.
Yeah, I'll look something up and send that over to you in the next room. But yeah, that's.
I've got another image as well. We've just got one more after this, but this one, I don't know, looks like either an eagle, maybe even some sort of griffin, maybe something like this. And I don't know, it looks like it's raining fire down on the earth. Yet you have a sacred heart shape just beneath a flower. Again, very unusual. And the last image, which I will save for anyone listening to this, is a Mason of any rite, you will know that the anchor has a particular message, and you will also note that certain ropes, when tied in a particular way, also have another message. So here we have an anchor that has a rope attached to it, and just above the anchor we don't have the pyramid of the Eye of Providence anymore. We have the star, a 5-pointed star, its rays covering the anchor completely. In other words, the anchor often depicts stability. Essentially, if you've undertaken a pilgrimage, okay, rest your anchor here, you're here. There's no more movement, stability, and all of this. But what it means is going to take quite a bit of research, because it's fascinating. I should just say, we also visited a Roman funerary, which was very interesting, and we've got plenty of other trips, so we'll try and keep you updated with.
Yeah, the funeral pyre was really interesting, as was the little church in the field, in the middle of a field that nobody goes to. I don't know what that little church. Oh, there we go.
Just quickly, with 20 seconds left. If you're watching the show, this is a church that's clearly built out of Roman brick. That's just my eyes.
Yeah. Before we go, look out for James's books on Amazon right now. Just look up James Martin or Tim Wallace Murphy, and you will find his book. The title again, oh my God, I'm blanking. Uncharted. And also keep your eyes open to the website for KGRADB, because we've got a great, huge live stream event coming up on April 29th that you won't want to miss. So all that's going to be coming out on the website very, very quickly. Take care, everybody. Night, James.
Night.
Night.